Imagine buying 50 acres of private, untouched forest, strictly outside HOA jurisdiction, only to find out your neighbor, the HOA president, secretly bulldozed your land to build his own luxury driveway. He thought he was untouchable. He thought the thick tree canopy would hide his crime forever. But he forgot one simple detail. I owned a high-powered camera drone, and what that lens captured wasn't just trespassing. It was a multi-million-dollar cover-up. If you love crazy HOA revenge stories and standing up for property rights, hit that subscribe button right now. It helps the channel immensely. It all started 6 months ago when I purchased a serene 50-acre plot bordering the gated community of Whispering Pines. My land was 100% private property, completely free from any homeowners association rules, fees, or nosy neighbors. Or so I thought. Arthur Pendelton, the self-proclaimed lifetime president of the Whispering Pines HOA, didn't see it that way. Arthur was used to running his neighborhood like a small-town dictator. He handed out absurd fines for unmowed grass, dictated mailbox colors, and threatened legal action against anyone who questioned his authority. When I broke ground on a modest, eco-friendly cabin deep inside my woods, Arthur showed up at my property line in his golf cart, clipboard in hand. He didn't introduce himself. He pointed at my trees and declared, "You're violating HOA aesthetic standards. Cease construction immediately, or I'll fine you into bankruptcy." I shook my head. "Arthur, check the county surveyor maps. My land isn't part of your HOA. You have zero authority here." Arthur's face turned bright red. "We'll see about that. Nobody defies me in this valley." I thought it was just the empty rambling of a power-hungry neighbor. I was dead wrong. 2 weeks later, I noticed tire tracks near the western ridge of my property. Dense oak, trees that had stood for decades, were chopped down. Huge piles of gravel were dumped right across my boundary line. Someone was illegally carving a road straight through my private forest. I called local authorities, but Arthur had deep connections in town. The responding officer dismissed it as a civil boundary dispute and refused to file a police report. Without police intervention, Arthur moved faster. He brought in heavy machinery, carving deeper into my land every single day. He knew that by the time a civil lawsuit made it through court, the road would be finished and my forest destroyed. He thought he had won. He assumed the dense forest canopy kept his illegal operation invisible from the street. He didn't realize I had just bought a high-resolution 4K drone. I launched the drone high into the sky, hovering right over the tree line. What I saw on the controller screen made my jaw drop. Arthur wasn't just building a driveway. The drone's crystal-clear feed revealed the true scale of Arthur's operation. He wasn't just clearing a path for a simple gravel road. He was constructing a paved, private access highway leading directly from his backyard, straight through 10 acres of my private timberland, connecting to the main county highway. But that wasn't the worst part. As I zoomed the camera lens in on the heavy excavators, I noticed a massive excavation pit dug deep into my hillside. Scattered around the pit were rusted, leaking steel drums labeled with biohazard warnings. Arthur's HOA had been secretly dumping illegal hazardous chemicals from the subdivision's maintenance facility onto my private land for years, hiding it under the dense tree cover. By bulldozing a road over it, he was attempting to cap the site in concrete and permanently bury the evidence of environmental crime. He wasn't just stealing land. He was committing a federal offense. I brought the drone down to eye level, hovering it silently right behind Arthur's golf cart as he walked the construction site with his site manager. The drone's microphone recorded Arthur's exact words. "Bury the drums deep before that idiot realizes what we're doing. The county inspectors are in my pocket. But we need this road paved by Friday." I quickly landed the drone, saved the unedited 4K footage to 3 separate encrypted hard drives, and immediately backed it up to cloud storage. Equipped with indisputable digital evidence, I didn't go back to the local police. Instead, I bypassed local authorities entirely and contacted the State Environmental Protection Agency, the Department of Natural Resources, and a high-profile property rights trial attorney known for dismantling corrupt local officials. The attorney's advice was simple: don't say a word to Arthur yet. Let him keep digging his own grave. 3 days later, Arthur held the mandatory Whispering Pines annual HOA meeting, completely unaware that his entire world was about to collapse. I walked straight into the community hall, uninvited, with a projector and a laptop tucked under my arm. Arthur slammed his gavel down on the podium. "This is a private meeting for HOA members only. Trespassers will be arrested." I smiled, plugged my laptop into their main projector system, and pointed at the screen. "Arthur, before you call the cops, maybe the board members would like to see what you've been doing with their emergency funds on my property." The room went dead silent. The projection screen lit up, showing high-definition footage of Arthur standing next to the leaking chemical drums on my land. The room exploded into chaos. HOA board members stood up, staring in horror as the high-definition footage played across the large projection screen. The video clearly showed Arthur pointing directly at the leaking biohazard drums, his voice echoing through the hall speakers as he instructed his crew to bury the toxic chemicals under a layer of illegal concrete. "That's a photoshopped fake!" Arthur screamed, his face turning an aggressive shade of purple. He grabbed his gavel and slammed it so hard against the podium that the wooden block cracked in half. "Turn that off right now. I will sue you for defamation, slander, and trespassing." I calmly stepped up to the podium microphone. "Arthur, this is raw, unedited 4K drone footage with GPS timestamps. And while you were busy trying to cover up your illegal dump site, the State Environmental Protection Agency and federal land investigators were reviewing this exact file. Right on cue, 2 marked state patrol vehicles and an unmarked EPA vehicle pulled up outside the community hall windows, their emergency lights flashing against the glass. The HOA board members panicked. Whispering Pines residents began shouting questions, demanding to know if their property values and drinking water had been compromised by Arthur's secret dumping operation. The board treasurers immediately stood up and declared, "The board had no knowledge of this. Arthur operated those maintenance funds entirely on his own." Arthur was cornered. He bolted for the side exit of the hall, trying to slip out to his golf cart in the dark. But as he opened the door, 2 state environmental investigators were already standing on the steps with a binder full of federal warrants. They didn't just arrest him for trespassing or destruction of private property. They served him with immediate warrants for illegal hazardous waste disposal, environmental contamination, and grand theft of HOA funds. Arthur was led away in handcuffs in front of the entire community he had ruled over for a decade. He thought his nightmare was over when he posted bail that night, but he didn't realize that the criminal charges were only the beginning. My legal team was preparing a civil lawsuit that would strip him of everything he owned. While the state prosecutor handled the criminal charges, my trial attorney launched a massive civil lawsuit against Arthur personally, as well as the Whispering Pines HOA board for failing their fiduciary duties. We sued for willful destruction of private timberland, intentional trespass, environmental remediation costs, and punitive damages for gross negligence. Arthur tried to hide behind the HOA's legal shield, claiming he acted in his official capacity as president. But our drone footage had already proved he was using HOA equipment and funds for his own personal driveway project, invalidating his immunity. When the court ordered an emergency audit of the HOA's financial accounts, the true scale of Arthur's corruption blew wide open. Over the past 7 years, Arthur had embezzled nearly $1.2 million in neighborhood dues. He used the money to pay off his personal credit cards, fund luxury vacations, and finance private home renovations. The illegal chemical dumping wasn't just laziness. It was his way of avoiding paying proper disposal fees so he could pocket the extra cash. Faced with overwhelming evidence, the HOA board quickly settled out of court to avoid total bankruptcy. They agreed to pay for the complete restoration of my 10 damaged acres, including replanting hundreds of mature trees and fully decontaminating the soil. Arthur, however, couldn't settle. To satisfy the multi-million-dollar judgment awarded to me, the court placed a lien on all of Arthur's personal assets. His luxury home in Whispering Pines, his sports cars, and his private savings accounts were all seized and liquidated at auction. The ultimate irony? The very neighborhood he spent a decade controlling with an iron fist watched him pack his personal belongings into trash bags as he was evicted from his own house. My property was fully restored, pristine, and clean. And to ensure you're no corrupt HOA president would ever cross my boundaries again, I posted high-definition security cameras and kept my drone fully charged. With Arthur officially bankrupt, stripped of his assets, and facing pending state prison time for environmental crimes and embezzlement, the entire dynamic of the valley shifted. The Whispering Pines HOA underwent a complete overhaul. The terrified board members who remained immediately dissolved the aggressive rules, canceled all outstanding frivolous fines against residents, and replaced their leadership with honest community members who actually cared about property rights. They even sent a formal, written apology to my front door, officially waiving any future claims or disputes regarding my land boundaries. As for my 50 acres, the court-ordered environmental restoration team worked for months to completely decontaminate the soil, remove every trace of the hazardous drums, and regrade the hillside back to its natural shape. Using the settlement money awarded from the lawsuit, I hired a professional forestry team to plant hundreds of mature oak and pine trees where Arthur had illegally cleared my woods. Within a year, the forest looked more vibrant and lush than it ever had before. I finally finished building my custom, off-grid eco-cabin high on the western ridge, the exact spot Arthur tried to steal. Now, every morning, I sit on my front porch with a cup of coffee, enjoying the peaceful silence of my private, unbothered land. And every now and then, I unpack my drone, send it up into the blue sky, and take a quick victory lap over the valley. A subtle reminder that real property rights will always prevail against corrupt power. What would you have done if an HOA president tried taking over your private land? Let me know in the comments below.